If you think it's tough in the newspaper business, be very thankful you're not in local television. Be very thankful you're not in local radio. We'll also talk about how direct mail has changed dramatically in the last year. Have all of you noticed how your direct mail has dropped off significantly? That's because it's now moved from a vehicle of saturation to a very targeted vehicle. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The news this morning, any of you, when I was in the hotel room this morning, I always flip on the local channel. And in the first 22 minutes of the local news, all they talked about was 4 things. Weather, 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 and weather. They threw in a little bit about Barack. They threw in a little bit about a human interest story about the schools. And they threw in a little bit about swine flu. But basically, ladies and gentlemen, local television has lost everything but weather. They've lost news and they've lost video. So we're in a very good situation. Let's take an overview and let's look first at advertising. This next overhead takes a look at advertising. And I wanted to give you this sense, and I'll take you a minute just to read it, give you a minute to read it and scan it, to give you a sense of what's really happening. If you'll notice, I started with 2008, then I moved down to the first quarter, then I moved down to the second quarter, then I moved down to the first 6 months. You'll notice the total ad expenditures in the first 6 months, halfway down. We're down 14% compared to last year. The only 2 up, the next paragraph were Internet display and FSIs. They were the only ones to achieve expenditure growth. FSIs, of course, everyone knows is freestanding inserts. We see that growth happening because of the shift away from direct mail. Direct mail's taken a significant hit because one of their biggest categories has gone away. Anybody care to tell me what the biggest category in direct mail was for the last 2 or 3 years? You were getting them all the time. They were unsolicited. Bank offers. The financial institutions have moved away from direct mail because of the industry. Now we step down and we look at newspapers. Newspapers were down 24%. Local newspapers were down about 25. Magazines were down 20. Total spending in radio was down 24%. And most of those declines came in 3 areas: automotive, retail, and local services. Should mention to you that radio is currently, this is the ninth consecutive quarter of declining revenues in the radio business. That means radio ad revenue has started to decline before the recession started. Also, ladies and gentlemen, radio is now beneath, or the internet has passed radio as a primary advertising vehicle. The last 2, IAB is the Interactive Ad Bureau. They give you a report on online advertising, and as you can see, they were up. But look what happened, the very last, Bitsy, if you can move it up just a bit, the very last point, even for the first half of the year, internet advertising was down, and they expect it to decline for the full year. They expect internet advertising to decline this year, and it'll be the first time since 2002. What happened in the first half? What happened in the first half of 2009? There was a real shift because banner ad spending stayed pretty much static. It didn't decline as much as other areas in internet advertising, and that's because the ad networks are selling a lot of banner advertising, and that's where a lot of the budgets are going. An internet ad network, of course, is a network that sells throughout. It might be Google. And they do that because they have increased reach, they have flexibility of payment models, they also have lower costs. The negative side when you buy an internet ad network is placement. And also there continues to be some discussion about statistics. As we go through this, you'll note that some of my sources are as late as Tuesday of this week. They will be out of date. They will be old news in about 3 months. That's how quickly this is all changing. Let's go to the next one. This gives you a sense of where many of the dollars are being spent. And this gives you a sense the formats that they're using. Typically, they're using search first, as we heard Andrew say, then it's display, and display is made up of banner, rich media, digital, and sponsorships. Rich media includes things like interactive sight and sound, video, flash. Classifieds, typically that would include Craigslist, lead generation, and email. What's changing is the CPM model, and as you'll notice at the bottom of my overhead, the Interactive Ad Bureau now says that only 38% of online advertising was sold through a CPM model. More and more of it is going to a performance-based model. And the reason it's going to a performance-based model is because more and more advertisers, they want to understand and they want an accountability of where their dollars are going and how their dollars are being utilized. So they're looking at when I commit to online advertising, who's seeing it and where does it go and what does it happen?